day 24 of my extended 20-day water fast. So it's still going, and my shoulder is definitely, it's coming along. I'm definitely getting a lot more range of my, from the broken collarbone. Putting a little ice on it again, because definitely some of the surrounding muscles are still sore. But I definitely have a lot more range of motion than I had. I'm filming this the next morning, so reporting on day 24. So went without an arm sling all day. So I think that was first time going without an arm sling all day since the re-break. Right now I'm just putting a little ice pack on my shoulder here. Just kind of ease it, but it's definitely getting a lot better for sure. So the numbers, okay, a couple of things. The weight jumped up. I actually gained a pound, and I can probably explain that. I got a little carried away. I had bought a whole bunch of seltzer waters, and I know in the last video I talked about that I started kind of getting a little carried away with the seltzer waters. And so, my concerns were fulfilled in that I actually jumped a pound the next day due to consuming I think probably half of my 3 liters was probably in the form of those seltzer waters. So I definitely went way overboard. So I'm reeling that back in, tapering that down, because that was and then I read somewhere that CO2, having too much CO2 containing beverage could actually cause you to start gaining weight back. So that's another interesting thing, that CO2 could actually contribute to insulin spikes. And so I was like, holy crap, I never heard about that. And then it makes me think about, like, dang, that's another factor contributing to people gaining weight. Because how many people are, like, half the things they're drinking is soda, and so it's a combination of the sugars in the soda, plus the carbon dioxide in the soda, plus different foods they're allergic to. I mean, it is like this multi-factor situation that's all contributing to people gaining weight. That it's not a one-dimensional problem. It's literally like, as I've been studying a lot of things, just researching for hours a day, listening while I'm on the train, or just listening while I'm driving a car or something like that. I'm learning so much, and it's just making me so much more aware. It's like, holy crap, it's like people. The obesity epidemic is there's so many factors that it's basically has become like a perfect storm of spiking people's insulin, raising people's inflammation, which then contributes to more weight gain. So the insulin spikes contribute to weight gain. Inflammation, the body naturally wants to hold on to fat when it's inflamed. Then we got all these different food, and so it's all these substances and foods, and then we have the different chemicals that being subjected to that are also contributing to more inflammation, which then contributes to more holding on to fat. That I'm just like, wow, there needs to be a whole lot of changes has to happen in order for the obesity epidemic to get under control. but I have my doubts that most people are willing to make any changes. But, I think maybe once people are just so fat, miserable, and, facing a terminal disease, it seems like that's what it takes for people to actually change. So, but hopefully, my continued recordings will help inspire at least a few people to take on purifying themselves, to take on really understanding what are the things they're consuming, putting in their bodies that are messing with their bodies and damaging their most important asset, which is their body. Never forget, your number one asset is your own body. Because without that asset, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. You can't help anybody. You can't, if you have kids, you can't take care of your kids as much as you're like, oh, my kids come first, and, I'll sacrifice my own body and everything for my kid. Yeah, no, that's stupid. That is stupid. That's the most retardedest thing ever. How is a broken adult supposed to optimally be able to help your own kids? Like, that's dumb. It's the same thing with like the airplanes. That's why they say put the mask on yourself first and then put it on your kids. Because if you're passed out, then you're no good to them. It's like you can't save anybody if you haven't saved yourself, so it's got to save yourself first. You can't save yourself second. That doesn't work. As much as that feels noble, it's actually detrimental to everybody. It doesn't do anybody a good. So anyways, that's my little ramble for the time being. I'll probably get into another one in a few minutes. Okay, let me finish the numbers. So definitely consume 3+ liters. Like I said, probably half of that was like, the sparkling mineral water. Went to the bathroom still around 6 times or so, give or take. The pH of the water, of the regular filtered water, the part that I did drink, was 9.42. TDS 92, EC 185. I experimented with getting up really early. I started watching this Indian guru. I can't think of the name at the moment, but I'll maybe mention it later. He talked about his philosophies about fasting and how he's incorporated fasting for the last 40 years in his life, and that now he only eats. He's a 1 meal a day eater, and that he's been like that for I think for like at least the last decade or last couple of decades. He's just a 1 meal a day eater. And so he says that you should never eat. There should always be a minimum of 8 hours between meals. And so, so he's like, if you are going to eat multiple times a day, it should just be breakfast and dinner. And with an 8-hour span, a minimum of 8-hour span between those two meals, and eat nothing in between. And that it's good to feel hungry, because you do your best work. You do your best thinking when on an empty stomach. And I totally believe that, because I that's been my experience. So much clearer headed, so much better working, so much more focused, so much more energy on an empty stomach. A lot of people go, oh, no, I have a full stomach. When you have a full stomach, think like the times you get really full. That full stomach contributes to lethargy, because now all the blood is rushing to your gut. It's not to the rest of your body. It's not all maximized to your brain and the rest of your extremities. It's all rushing to your gut to just like process all that food that you just consumed. So yeah, to think that, getting a full belly of food is a way to have more energy is completely ignores your own experiences, because your own experiences, I know everyone's own experiences, that's just not true. So yeah, and yeah, there were some other things. So, and then the other thing he mentioned was how because he eats so much less and has much longer fasting periods, his body recovers so much quicker. He has much less downtime, and therefore he only needs to like sleep, 3 to 4 hours a night. And that's more than enough for him, because he's not consuming so much food like everyone else does. He doesn't need to sleep as much because he doesn't need to have as much downtime to recover from consuming all those foods and processing all those toxins, which makes perfect sense because, everyone says, oh, you need at least 7 to 8 hours a night. But that's based on people who have been eating a Western-based diet where they're eating 3 meals a day plus 2 or 3 snacks in between, and they're just bombarded with food and constantly bombarding their system. So I got inspired by that. So I thought, okay, let me just experiment. I have no food in my stomach. I've been fasting for a while. Maybe I can wake up even earlier. And so I'd set my alarm for my Alexa alarm for 5:30. She just came on.
Is that 5:30 in the morning or in the afternoon?
Cancel.
Canceling.
Anyways, you know who. So she woke me up 5:30 in the morning, turned on the lights because I have a little smart light, little plug that flip my light on and stuff in the back. And so initially I was feeling like, oh, okay, I think I feel pretty good. And then went straight into doing some reading a book, and then caught up on a couple of quick videos I wanted to watch the night before, but then forced myself to say, no, I'm going to sleep right now, which was at 1 a.m. See, that's my version of forcing myself to go to bed early, is force myself to go to 1 a.m. Yeah, about an hour. Then I put on my headphones to do my hollow sync meditation. Purification level 3 that I'm on right now. Purification level 3. I just moved up to immersion 0.3 for all the holosync fans out there. And then, it's definitely a, deeper, stronger track. And then I did the meditation, but then after the meditation ended, I then was feeling like, oh God, I was like, I definitely could feel that I did not get enough sleep that my body wanted. So, so I just kind of passed back out, and I finally got up at like 9, but I was still just like feeling disrupted. I felt like my sleep cycle was disrupted feeling. So that the suddenly waking up at 5:30 in the morning just did not work for me. At least not at this stage. And, it could be that, my body is still in healing mode. It's still, I've got some damage here, a little bit of damaged tissue, and it's still sore and aching. My big toe still aches a little bit. There's still some blackness around that has shrunken a lot. But, before it was just black and blue and just black and all that stuff. But now it's mostly, it's 90% gone now, but it's still, remnants are there, and I could still feel a little bit of achiness if I apply more than a mild amount of pressure to it while stepping. So yeah, as I was walking, I was still walking with a little bit of a limp, but less of a limp during, through the day. So I wasn't limping as much. I was walking a little bit more on my full foot, and not as much not just mostly walking on my left heel and keeping my toes completely off the ground. So yeah, so that was that part. So basically for the next few hours, I really felt like I was dragging through most of the rest of the day. I just felt off. That getting disrupted, you know how it is. It's just like when you get disrupted in the middle of your sleep cycle, you just can feel like off and groggy, and that could just drag through the rest of your day. And that's kind of what I felt like for the most part. And so I did not get some other stuff done that I wanted to because I just was just dragging. So it ended up being a bit of a lazier day for a period of time. I finally decided to go to the gym, too. I was like, well, if I'm going to be a little bit lazy, at least I could be lazy sitting in the steam and sauna room and stuff and do some detoxing along the way. If I'm not going to get any other, work done, at least get this, do some body nurturing maintenance detox work done that doesn't require too much effort on my part other than just showing up there. So did a few things. I'm still experimenting, trying things out, seeing like, okay, what little things can I kind of mix it up a little, since I was like, okay, I passed the day 20 mark where I'd stayed pretty strict. So now I'm just like, okay, I'll loosen up just a little bit. So, one thing that sucks, I lost my water bottle, the brand new glass one that I just bought. I rode on the train and I had a couple other bags with me, and I set my glass water bottle on the side and got off the train and suddenly realized, oh crap, I got off this, got to my stop, jumped off the train, and then totally forgot that I had stashed it kind of on my side, and I just totally missed it. And so I only realized that after I got off the train and was already at the gym. So that really sucked. So I had to reorder one. So that was like, $21, $22 or something. So I was just like, oh, damn it. So, but just live and learn. Won't do that mistake again. I think this time it has that loop. I'm going to get a little carabiner and just always have it when I'm traveling on a train or in a car or in a Uber or something like that. Clip it to my belt or my bag or something. If I have something else I'm carrying with me, clip it together so that I don't leave it behind when I'm moving from one transportation to another. So, that might be a good tip for everyone out there. Tried. So what else at the gym? A couple of things I tried. Tried a hot cup of gentle green tea, which that felt really soothing. And I heard, green tea is definitely something that's really positive. Also contributes to, lowering insulin levels and promoting well-being. So, and generally that's considered something safe to do on a fast. So it's not contributing any caffeine or anything like that. So, or like such minimal amount, I think. So I did a little bit of that. That kind of, made me feel a little better. So while I was at the gym, I decided to try to practice some of my martial arts. I've been out of, I've been practicing a little bit in class, but I hadn't been practicing the two-armed stuff, with the serrata eskrima, where I have the stick and the knife. And so this was the first time since my accident, since the original accident back on December 23rd, where I originally broke my collarbone and big toe, that I actually utilized both arms. And this arm is holding the little knife, so it's only several ounces in one hand, so it's a pretty minimal amount of load on my left arm. And I went through the moves, and the main obstruction with that was more of my left toe, because I couldn't get down and do those moves where I'm really like on the ball of my foot, on my left foot. I couldn't do that, so I had to kind of truncate some of the moves. So, but it was still good to get, at least get some movement back, go through some of the motions again, practice it again. I noticed I was a little rusty on some of the moves, and there was a couple of times where like I remembered it before, but now it was like, I think this is how you do it. So I definitely realized I got to get back into the full training as soon as possible, as soon as this finishes recovering. But through that, I realized that, again, during this fast, my muscles, they don't have the quick access to the glycogen storage like it would if I would be consuming food. And so the muscles are receiving energy at a much slower rate. So they become energy depleted much quicker when you're fasting. And so the end result is that you end up feeling this depleted feeling in your body when you exert more than just low effort exercise, like just walking and general little things like that, which doesn't tax the muscles beyond their ability to draw energy. So I definitely noticed, I did like a few minutes of this, few minutes of that. I only did a couple of rounds of some things I normally would do like 5 to 10 rounds. I only did like 1 or 2. And then by then, after maybe like a half an hour or so, I just started the exhaustion feeling throughout my body, throughout my muscles set in. And then I was just like, I gotta quit. I can't continue. So I stopped, but it was still, I think it was still good. I got at least 30 minutes in to just kind of do a little refresher on several different routines. And so that's something that, again, I'm not going to be able to go fully into my martial arts training until I complete my fast, until I'm back to eating again. And then I've got the full level of energy in my muscles again. So, but I'll certainly be a hell of a lot lighter. So I know my training is definitely going to be so much more pleasant, less effort, less feeling like I'm just pushing all this load around. And the other thing is, it's winter time right now. And I definitely was noticing more than ever how much I was feeling cold. I mean, I had the 2 layers on. I had my DKNY, insulated, my thin, it's kind of a thin, but it's insulated jacket, plus another little motorcycle insulated thin layer, jacket. And I just kind of put those double layers on. And, I mean, I know a week or 2 ago, 10 days ago, I wouldn't have felt cold. And I know it's like, okay, it's probably gotten a little colder now, but I don't think it's gotten that much colder. It's maybe within this 5 degrees or something as it was 10 days ago. But I am definitely noticing that just wearing those before, I would have felt fine. I would have felt like warm enough. But now when I put those on and I was walking outside to catch the train, and then from the train get off at the station and walk to the gym, I was definitely feeling cold. And so it has definitely become apparent that I have lost a sufficient amount of layer of fat on my body that insulation that it previously provided and kept the warmth in and kept me feeling warm, that I don't have that anymore. And that, as I continue this fast, I'm going to continue losing that layer of insulation. And it just, it kind of was like, oh, right, there's one downside to this. There's definitely a con on losing all this weight, is that I'm gonna more frequently be freezing my ass in the winter time. And I got to think differently now about my clothing and what I'm wearing, and the thickness, and having the heater and all that stuff. I mean, on the other hand, I tell myself, well, you know what, it's good to have cold therapy and subject myself to cold, and it's good to just tough it out and just embrace the cold. And you don't need to be comfortable all the time. Being comfortable all the time, that's part of the problem, is that we make ourselves soft and weak by always trying to make ourselves feel comfortable, as opposed to intentionally putting yourself into uncomfortable situations to grow yourself and to, make yourself stronger. But nevertheless, there's definitely times where just like, I've already subjected myself to lots of discomfort already for the day. I just need to feel comfortable right now. But that was just something that just kind of hit me during the day. But on the other hand, I was like, to contrast that, I was like, well, on the other hand, And during summertime months, and we're, in different hot situations and in the car, in the past, I was always the first one to complain that turn off the AC, I'm dying back here. Or just I'm going somewhere, I'm just sweating, and I'm the first one to be too hot. So conversely, now I'm like, well, to look forward to summertime months where for the first time, I'm not going to be the first one who's going to complain it's too hot, that it will actually feel much better for me. And I'm not going to be like so quick to need to turn the AC on because I'm sweating bullets. So, so it'll be good to be kind of interesting to see the flip side of this. When I did go to the gym, I again did a combination of, and I did a fairly extended combination of doing the dry sauna. And this time I just went straight to the dry sauna. I definitely noticed a difference because I didn't go from a cold shower, and I was still kind of had beads of water on me when I walked into the sauna. And then it kind of helped to kind of regulate the temperature and, through evaporation, make me feel a little cooler when I was in that sauna. So when I walked in there totally dry, no shower, it definitely felt a lot hotter than any other time, because I guess I'd never walked into the sauna totally dry before. So, but I just sat there and just waited until I was just covered in sweat, which was, fairly long time. I mean, at least a half an hour or more. And then did the cold shower, did the Hoffman breathing techniques again, then went back and then went into the steam room, also stayed in there for a pretty extended period of time, at least a half an hour or more, maybe 45 minutes, then did the cold shower again, and then Hoffman breathing practice again. And so, so again, I ended up doing 3 cycles. I think I did the full 3 cycles of the 30 breaths breathing technique, plus the exhale, holding it, inhale, holding it, and then letting go again. So, but I noticed after that whole duration of time, which probably lasted close to 2 hours, that whole process I did, when I went to look at myself in the mirror, I noticed, and it looks like even right now I still have it, all of these little red blotches showed up on the top of my head, which they weren't there before. I didn't see them before. And so now I have all these little, I don't know, can see. Yeah, all these red blotches showed up. So I'm assuming it's, it's some kind of toxin, some kind of something that's just like pushed to the surface because of all that hot, cold, intense temperatures, extended periods of time. Or I damaged something, I don't know. Or I hope that's not the case. But at the end, I definitely, maybe I went a little too long, because at the end of it, and I think it was because a combination of, I pushed myself to beginning of feeling exhaustion, just doing those 30 minutes of the little more intense martial arts positions, where I was getting really low at the ground, having to like tense my thighs and glutes and all that. And so that was much more taxing on my body. And then plus the 2 hours of that hot, cold therapy, dry heat, cold, back to wet heat, back to cold. I really pumped my system pretty hard in that sort of way. And so I at the end of it, I was like, whoa, I'm just feeling like spent. I was feeling spent after that. And then I was also feeling kind of nauseous, actually. I was feeling nauseous, and then I started feeling, interesting enough, suddenly that hunger, that toxic hunger, I'm referring to as toxic hunger now. So any kind of growling, grumbling in the stomach, I'm labeling that as toxic hunger, because it's not true hunger. Anything that's not true hunger, by definition, is toxic hunger, because it's not your body that's actually hungry. So I started getting the toxic hunger, grumbling sensation all through my stomach, all the way up to my sternum area. And it was just like, so it was pretty widespread this time. I was like, whoa, this is interesting. It just kind of, this wave started hitting me, in combination with then this wave of like nausea that kind of was like throughout my system, and just kind of like, and combined with this feeling of exhaustion and tiredness. So I definitely put myself through the ringer, as much as there's just like this conditioning and detoxification, but I guess, it's part of the detoxification process. It comes in waves, that's the thing with this fasting, it's, it's really hard, and then it's easy. And then suddenly a wave of it being really hard suddenly could hit you, and then you just hold out and it passes and it's back to feeling easy again. And then suddenly another wave hits. So that's what it feels. Yeah, it is like that. It just comes in waves, and you don't know when those waves are going to hit. Just expect that a wave will hit again, and just be ready for it, and just be like, okay, stay committed, whatever the commitment is. It's like you stay committed to it and not give in. Of course, and, unless it's like you experience that it seems like a true emergency, where your body just like all the alarm bells are going off. But if it's just happening down here in your stomach, that is not the alarm bells going off. That is the alarm bells of more dying yeast and bacteria that are dying off in your system, that are screaming out that their alarm bells are going off, and they're trying to get you to feed them. So yeah, so ignore them, let them die. And then I ended the evening with rubbing the Kiehl's body lotion, from head to toe. Took my sweet time doing it, kind of giving myself kind of like a whole body massage. I think that was really good, because again, one of my objectives of why I want to extend this fast for as long as I can is to get to the later stage of autophagy, in which it actually starts to consume the skin cells, or consume, I don't know, what's in between the skin cells or something like that, that will cause the loose skin to tighten up, because, as the body is just going through and consuming all the consumable materials, it knows that there's an excess of skin, and it's not useful for it to be excess, and it could just be recycled and used for other more important things. So it will start doing that. But again, I don't see that that's going to fully kick in until I get closer to the low part of my fat storage. Once the fat storage gets really depleted, I think that's when the skin is really going to start tightening up. So that's why I'm wanting to push it as long as I possibly can. So I only have several more days to go to get to 30 days. So I say 24, so 6 days, 6 full days. Only need to go 6 more full days to hit 30, which I definitely, I don't believe I'm going to get there in 6 more days. Like there's still quite a bit of belly fat, and even when I feel my arms, I could still feel, I still feel a lot of fat. There's still plenty of fat on my body right now. And I'm not worried. I'm not concerned about muscle loss, again, because I've done plenty of research to confirm that the body, deploys techniques for sparing the muscle, including upping the human growth hormone. They said up to 1,200%, and that counteracts any muscle loss. So I know that I'm not losing muscle, that it's just fat and water weight, combination of those two. I think I've probably lost most of the water weight, I'm assuming. But as I feel my body, I could sense that I still have plenty of fat on my system, on my body. And I looked at another guy who is similar height to myself, like a Dr. Joel Furman. And I think we're about the same height. And, and he's super fit and thin. And I think he said he's like 150 pounds, and I was like, crap. I'm like, he's 150 pounds. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking someone 6 feet tall, like being 150 pounds is like hella skinny, But now I look at myself, I'm like, well, I still got plenty of fat. I'm just like, damn, like maybe 100, maybe it's going to take me to push myself down to like 150 or something before I really get this handled. And, that feels a bit too light for me. But I don't want to be having myself have fat. I want my body fat to be sub 10%. I think that's what it really takes to just have definition in your body and not look soft. It's like as soon as you're above 10%, that's when your body just starts to look soft. I don't want to look soft. I'm tired of looking soft. It's time to start. I don't want to look hard, in my body. So that's that's why I'm wanting to push it. So, at this stage, I'm going to reevaluate at day 30 is my plan. And if I'm still feeling good to go, I'm going to just keep, then I'll just keep going to possibly day 40, but maybe I'll just break it up in 5-day increments, but I don't see a reason to stop at this point. And so, yeah, so I'm just going to keep going, and that'll be good. And then hopefully then I will be able to reveal the skin tightening, because I don't think there's that many documented cases of skin tightening occurring, because in general it's believed that once you have loose skin, there's nothing you can do about it, is the general consensus in the medical profession, in plastic surgery and all of that. And so I'm really wanting to see about how, being my own case study and proving that it can be tightened naturally without surgery through fasting, through extended length fasting. So, and one more thing. Yeah, one other thing was interesting at the gym, back to the gym, all kinds of interesting things happened at the gym. Happened at the gym for day 24. And I spoke to this one fellow gym member who we've chatted at different times in the past, and he's recommended like this head shaver thing that I have it on my to buy list. So I want to purchase that soon. And he is apparently he's a neuroscientist. And he told me something was interesting, and I think I'd heard about it before, but he brought it up about this notion of, he says, because of so many of the times we are operating purely unconsciously, that most of our day, probably 98% of our day, we're completely unconscious. Like we're in autopilot. 95 to 98% of our day is on autopilot, where we're just going through the motions and we're not consciously thinking about what we're actually doing. And so a practice, and he suggested, it's like practice this, at least for a week, because it takes time and it's slow at first, to notice every time you go to pick something up, you go to step somewhere, you go, move your body in a certain direction, you change direction, I lift up this bill, I set the bill down. You're not saying it out loud, you're saying it in your head, but the act of doing the action and noticing the action, and then as the action is happening, labeling what the action is, and doing that throughout your day. And at first it's slower, you're going to be moving slower, your actions are going to be a little more delayed, because you're kind of having to almost pause more frequently. But the thing he's saying is that over time, you gradually get faster. But the thing is, there's so many, they say that 60,000 thoughts you have a day. Most of them you don't even notice because they go by so fast. And so what happens is you start to retrain your mind you start to bring your unconscious more connected to your conscious. And now your conscious mind, as you start doing this, suddenly at some point you'll start noticing all of the other little thoughts and ideas and things that normally were below your conscious level of thinking because you weren't paying attention. You start noticing all of these quick little thoughts that are darting by, that are telling you things and influencing you to do different things. And as you're doing certain things, you'll actually catch yourself in the act of doing detrimental things to yourself too. And you also catch the times in which you go unconscious again, because if the whole point is to be conscious of every little action you do, and then all of a sudden you do something and then you snap out of it, and now you're back to being conscious again and noticing what you're doing, you can then more focus on whoa, in that moment I completely went on autopilot, and then this bad thing happened, or I got into some argument, or I created some kind of conflict, or I made some major error that hurt me just now. But the thing that underlines it is that was done completely on autopilot, means there was some pattern that I just ran that caused that to happen. And then take notice of that and go, what was that all about? And then you start noticing that. And then if the next time something similar is about to happen, now, you recognize that, oh wait, this looks like a familiar pattern. And then you start the first step of the pattern, and, and maybe you still go through it, but this time you catch a little bit more and actually go, okay, I'm in my case, there's some kind of a conflict, some kind of a little bit of an argument between one gym member and the staff is saying you can't play music, and the guy's in the shower and he's like, he's obviously upset and annoyed, and then suddenly I decided to take on this practice that this guy Jason suggested I try. So I'm usually I go, okay, maybe I'll do it, but this time I was like, that sounds really interesting. And, and since I'm fasting, my mind is in a different headspace right now. So I immediately implemented it and started doing it. So I was just like, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. My right hand is clenching the handle. It's opening the locker door. My left hand is reaching in, pulling out my gym bag. My hands are opening the gym bag. Right hand reaches in, pulls out the shorts. Left hand. It was like that. But again, he said, it's tedious at first, but soon that will get faster. You'll be able to say those things quicker and quicker and quicker until it's just, you'll be able to say it just as fast as you normally would move. Because it's all in your head. So it's fast. You could say it faster than you could say it with your mouth, because your mind, your thoughts, can operate, in orders of magnitude faster than how fast you can speak something. So I'm doing all that, but I remember at the moment that little conflict arose, and then I opened the door, and I remember like, okay, I'm opening the door, and then at that point, turned off, went into unconscious mode, and then provided unsolicited advice, and basically said, well, you could get, and then just being a bit of a patronizing smartass, but in a calm manner, said, oh, you could get, waterproof headphones. So I'm like, so you can still listen to your music and, doesn't bug anybody. And he's just like, are you talking to me in the shower? Are you actually, who are you? Like what? And immediately pissed. And then I just calmly, and I acted innocent. That was the other thing. I realized I was still acting innocent. And I walked off, and then I just walked over to the station where I start putting the lotion. And then like a minute later, next thing I know, that guy came out. He's like, who's that guy who talked to me? Knocked on my locker and all, knocked on the door or the glass, which I didn't knock on the glass, which is kind of funny. I'm like, why would I knock on his glass, on the glass door to the shower like that? I'm like, why would I do that? But I mean, I didn't do that. Well, actually, why did I even suggest the damn thing to begin with is the main thing. And then this created this whole conflict scene in the gym where, he was just on full attack and getting just totally like right up in my face about this. And then saying that I reported him and all this stuff. And I was just trying to keep calm. The whole time I'm feeling like, oh, I'm innocent. I'm just trying to, I was trying to help, all that. But this kind of dragged on. And then we crossed paths again. And then he's like, I hope you have a good life. Oh, great. I guess you don't like music, all this stuff. But in the end, after it finally settled down, the tension settled down, I realized, like, what did I accomplish? All I accomplished was bringing, like, I took an environment that up until then had been a sanctuary of peace and quiet and nurturing, and I brought in chaos and disorder and strain and stress to that environment. And it was that feminine nature side that was a little too dominant in me that brought that out. And that's what I realized. The feminine is addicted to chaos and disorder. Like that's its main interest. It's like that's its main food. It wants chaos and disorder. It loves it. It loves chaos and disorder. Whereas the masculine wants order and, like building things and creating order and solving problems, and like things are solid, and it wants peace. It generally wants peace. I mean, it'll go to war to win and to conquer and all that kind of stuff too. But I'm just saying, like, in general, and of course the feminine also wants the nature part. So I think, there's the quadrants. I think I'd probably describe it as like there's 4 quadrants. So there's kind of the little more positive, a little more negative qualities. In this case, he was exuding more of the go to war masculine quality because he felt, slighted that kind of thing. And which, I could totally see that I was totally out of line and I should have just kept my mouth shut. But it's because I went unconscious in that moment and I realized, holy crap, I did that. There's been times I've done that in the past, many times I've done in the past, and then I was actively searching for fires to throw gasoline on and then pretend that I'm innocent. And that was something that just opened up, and it just suddenly went boom. It hit me that that's what I was doing, that I had done that all my life. And it was only through doing that noticing exercise, the combination of doing this fasting and then doing that noticing exercise that the neuroscientists suggested that I do, that I was able to catch that. So, so for anyone who wants to try that out, and you have some dysfunctional patterns, which I don't think I know anyone who doesn't have some kind of dysfunctional patterns, to take that practice on. And like I said, especially combining it with fasting, I think it's just a powerful combination. And so, because I've definitely been noticing, I've been processing through so many dysfunctional patterns and childhood traumas, healing childhood traumas, healing different old emotional wounds, just rebalancing my internal makeup of my mind it's definitely moving to a much healthier, more balanced, working mind and emotions in my body, and then getting, and as I was saying before, the hormones, getting the estrogen levels down in my system, which is definitely connected with the amount of fat I'm carrying. So the lower my body fat, the lower my estrogen levels are going to be, the less inclined I'm going to be to do feminine kind of things like, give unsolicited advice and, nitpick. Basically, another form of unsolicited advice is nitpicking. Everything is fine except that you notice this one little problem. And so, you know how it is, a lot of women are just, they can't ever seem to point out the things that are right. They only want to point out the things that are wrong. You can do everything right, and then they'll ignore all the things you did right, and then mention the one thing that they think you did wrong. And that's, and everyone knows that that's, and any woman who denies that is, they're lying, because every guy, if you're a guy, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about, because we all know from experience that that's 100% true. I guess maybe Mother Teresa is the exception to the rule, but other than that, I can't think of any other woman that is not a nitpicker. And again, I think it's because they like chaos and disorder. They like to trigger those emotional responses and get a reaction out of you, But then also it's our job as guys to not give in to that emotion, to not give in to that, like I said, it's a SHIT test, shit test. So I was just like, I realized I was doing the same thing, and so, I was just acting that out, and it's not constructive, and it just creates problems and drama and chaos and disorder. And it's like, it has no place in the locker room or any other place for that matter. It serves no purpose. Except, cheap thrills for the chaos seeker. And I don't want to be a chaos seeker anymore. So I definitely said, no, I can't do that anymore. And I guess I would describe this process of noticing everything I'm doing, noticing everything you do, like notice your left hand is picking this up, my right hand's this, I'm walking to this person, I'm talking to this person, I'm okay, I'm about to say this to this person, and like catching every little thing and noticing every little thing and labeling everything. I could only describe it as almost like I don't, anyone's familiar with computers and hard drives, there's a concept called indexing that allows for, a very fast search. It's like a cataloging and a fast search. It's a cataloging process of every single file on the hard drive so that you can quickly access any file on the hard drive instantly because you know exactly where it is. You don't have to like search for it. You have a catalog that just tells you exactly where that thing is on the hard drive. So in that way, after doing it for several hours yesterday, from the time he suggested it all the way till the evening time, and I kind of skipped a few steps here and there, but, for the most part, I think for the first day, I think I did pretty good. It felt like I was indexing everything I was doing. And it also allowed me to, interestingly enough, have a much clearer memory of sequence of actions I took from the time I spoke to Jason to the time I got home. When I think back to the day now, from that time, from the time I spoke with him to the time I got home, I actually have a much clearer, defined, specific sequence of memories of like, I did this and I did this, I walked here, I did this, I walked there, I went over to here, I went through this gate, I did, so it's interesting. Whereas before I might have been like, think back and it's kind of vague, it's kind of a blur, it feels more like a blur, but now where I'd have to like really concentrate for a little while to really remember a specific event, kind of like going back to, having to search because you don't actually have an index. But now because I was actively cataloging every single action I took, now when I think back, my memory is so much more pristine and clear and like step-by-step documented that it's like I feel like I could go back and pinpoint every single action I did. Like, okay, I walked through here and I went to here and I went to here and then I went to here and then I went over here and then I went back over to here and then I went to here, here. Whereas before it was just like I kind of walked back and forth around, like, it's like vastly different recall now. Which I thought was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. That kind of changes things. So I'm just like, wow, if I kept this up, I wonder if I fully conditioned this into me to do this, that then, my total recall, my memory could be, vastly superior than it was before, including being able to catch all my errors in a way that before I was just unconsciously going through the motions and I wouldn't catch my errors, only then later, get hit with the consequences and go, I don't know what happened, Whereas now I'm in it, I'm experiencing something, I'm noticing, and now I have a much higher probability that I'm going to be able to catch those errors while I'm in the act of committing them, and then possibly be able to just catch myself and hit the brakes and don't actually go through with it. So that feels really promising. And this also, the other thing that this brought up was I remember in the early times when I first started doing holosync meditation, that there was a supplemental guide called Thresholds of the Mind, and also some other supplemental, emails and blog posts that the creator Bill Harris wrote. And he did talk about that, using the meditation increases your own sense of self-awareness and allows you to start noticing. He's like, the key to breaking dysfunctional patterns is to be able to notice them and remain conscious throughout the pattern. Stay conscious throughout the dysfunctional pattern and be able to see all the actions you take to create that. And only once you fully see exactly what you're doing, in the example, like, you could start hammering your thumb with a hammer, smashing your thumb, doing yourself all this damage. But if you were totally unconscious about it, it's possible that you could just keep hammering your thumb and not stop. But as soon as you're conscious you're doing it, your brain automatically knows what to do. It knows to stop doing that because it's bad for you. It's hurtful to you, and you'll catch it and go, I'll just stop. You don't have to like convince yourself to stop, because when it's clearly bad for you, it's clearly going to hurt you, you just automatically will know to stop. The only way you can do things that are hurting you is because you're doing them unconsciously. That's it. Once you're fully conscious of doing something very dysfunctional and destructive, you can't help yourself but to stop. You can't actively go through something really destructive with full conscious awareness. It just doesn't work that way. So, so that's the thing. And so I remember, so that all that past stuff I read and studied kind of came together, and I was like, oh, right. I'd kind of forgotten about some of that stuff, but after this, talking to this neuroscientist and then taking on this practice for the rest of the evening, and then remembering that, it's all meshing together. And so now, a lot of these past elements are coming together. And so a lot of this different separate pieces of information and experiences are all meshing together and creating this more complete picture of what to do. So it's definitely giving me more hopefulness about, okay, all right, something else is coming up here. Something else really powerful is developing in terms of my own personal, psychological, emotional transformation and like enriching of my consciousness, making my consciousness a more enriched, reducing entropy, as one way of putting it. Always moving towards entropy reduction, less chaos, more order, a more ordered consciousness for myself. That is be more powerful, more effective, contributes more to the rest of people in the society. So that, I know that was a mouthful. That was, a lot to get off my chest, but I've already gotten a lot of fat off my chest, so I figured I'd get a few words off my chest. So, but I still got some more to go, so I'm sure I'll have plenty more to say, because it's got day 25 ahead of me. So all right, good luck on all you fellow fasters. All right, till the next one, day 25. All right.